KC Joyner, ESPN.com. We'll take a look at the tape and see what it looked like after that mess. And I really want to dive into Casey because this is one of the areas where we really value what he brings to the show. You know, the debate between Carson Wentz and Doug Pederson on the mechanics. Wentz says, no, my mechanics are fine. Pederson says, no, he's having mechanical issues. KC Joyner, you break the tie here. You look at Carson Wentz where he was. First 3 games, over 100 QB rating, on top of the world, 5 touchdowns, no picks. Middle 3 in October, starts to struggle. Now November and December, progressively worse and worse and worse. Do you see mechanical flaws? Do you see a guy who just, is overwhelmed because he doesn't have the talent? It seems like Doug Pederson trusts him a lot. But what do you see with Carson Wentz and what Doug Pederson saying? Pederson saying, oh, his mechanics are an issue, and Wentz is saying, no, not really.
I'm probably more in the Wentz camp, and I'm also of the camp that Doug Pederson has been in the NFL for a long time, and he was a quarterback, and he should know that you get a rookie quarterback coming into the league, and they talk about it all the time. The rookies will do fine through 8, 10, 12 weeks maybe at best, and then finally, they're used to playing that length of a season, and once they get past that length, I know he played with an FCS team that had a longer season, but still, you're talking it's not usual to play that many games for that long, so I think that he's probably running into your typical rookie wall, and as a coach, you don't want to just be saying, oh, you need to fix your mechanics. You need to find a way to help him fix the mechanics. You need to find a way to help him deal with the idea of getting through a 16-week season. So I'd be more in Wentz's camp to say, yeah, maybe his mechanics are struggling a bit, but that's not the reason this offense is in the shape it's in right now.
All right, we'll get to that in just a second here. But 12 weeks into the season, would you say calling 60 passes is helping his mechanics or whatever's ailing him right now?
No, I think what's really ailing him as much as anything, I've been doing a lot of thinking about this, that years ago, a reporter asked Vince Lombardi, they said, Vince, what makes why are you such a better coach than the other coach? What separates you from the other coaches? Lombardi thought about it for a minute, and he said, the difference is I know what the final product looks like. He said, I know exactly what I want my team to look like. And a lot of coaches in the league don't know what kind of team they want to have. They don't know what they want the final product to look like. And then the more I look at Doug Pederson's coaching, it's like he seems to be falling into that category of what type of team does he want to have, because if you try to ask yourself, what would Bill Belichick do if he coached this team, and what strengths would he highlight, and what weaknesses would he mitigate? I think he'd have a whole lot different game plan than the one we're seeing from Philadelphia.
Talking with KC Joyner here. All right, you said his mechanics or whatever ails him is not the reason for the issues they're having on offense. Break down some of the reasons why this team continues to struggle, really since Lane Johnson went out on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, well, you haven't Wentz through 20 vertical passes for one, and you don't want to be in that situation. I know the game flow was part of it, but Wentz only averages 6.4 yards per attempt on the vertical passes. That's terrible. If you have 6.4 yards per attempt for your entire listing of passes, including short passes, it would be mediocre. You'd almost be better off running the football. Some of it is mechanics. Look, he's not. He does look like he's getting a little worn as the season goes along. But again, you need to account for that in your play calling and things. And I just think they're not being able to play call the receivers open because they don't have the talent to get the receivers open. And if you don't have the talent to get the receivers open, you need to play call the receivers open. And it's a lot easier to play call receivers open in short passes than it is vertical passes. So I think I'm always an advocate for throwing more vertical passes, but I don't want to see Wentz throwing 20 vertical passes a game if these are the 20 vertical passes he's going to be throwing.
Yeah, and they've had the line problems. Johnson out, Vaitai in, Vaitai out, Barber out. They shifted a left guard over to right tackle. I mean, you've kind of maintained throughout the course, even though they had a lot of movement, the line has not really been an issue. Was it an issue yesterday?
Yeah, probably. I would think that it would be an issue yesterday because they gave up. They only got 1 sack, but Cincinnati got 10 quarterback hits. I mean, they were able to get in there and get a lot of pressure. And you're throwing 60 passes again. I know 20 vertical passes, you're going to allow a lot of hits and things, but you're getting that kind of a pass rush pressure. I just think once the game flow got away from them, and the thing is, though, is when you're down 19-0 at halftime, I mean, you're just going to have to play an entirely different sort of game. But I don't think it was the matter of just the pass rush pressure getting to them. I think this team as a whole, I think you guys talked about the quitting. I think they look tired. If you want unscientific scouting view of it, I think it looks like a tired team, a team that is very wore out, and whether or not that's, I don't think it's a number of plays like it was last year, where they wore the defense out, but I just think this team looks tired, and maybe it's a mental issue, maybe it's a physical issue, but they just didn't look like going through the motions.
Well, they do play a lot of young guys, rookie kids that are, their college season is about over at this point. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, That's a little different, though. They don't play as many rookies and young guys on defense. They have a veteran defense for the most part, other than maybe Mills at corner. So what did you see yesterday from Jim Schwartz's unit that really, Casey, halfway through the season, this looked like a defense that could maybe be a playoff-level defense that could really, Schwartz was being mentioned as a head coaching candidate. This defense has been terrible the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it has been. We keep talking about when they blitz, they do well. When they don't blitz, they don't do well. But the number that stands out to me in yesterday's game, Andy Dalton only throws 10 vertical passes. That's not a lot of vertical passes. He completes 9 for 219 yards. 219 yards, you're only throwing 10 vertical passes, and you're getting a 90% completion rate on your vertical passes. You almost never win a game if you allow those kinds of numbers. I mean, it doesn't matter how good your passing game is, and unless you're equaling that from your passing perspective, you are almost never going to win a game. And the thing is you look at the talent on the defense, and yeah, Carroll's not that great. McKelvin's taken a step back this year, but you put it also. They get all those. They get only 25 of those yards go to Eifert. We talked last week about how the Eagles were so good at stopping tight ends. They hold Eifert to 2 for 25. He scores a touchdown, but still only 2 for 25, and yet you end up allowing 200 more yards in vertical passing, even though you take their best receiver out of the game, and they're actually the best receivers out of the game due to injury, and the best receiver they have in the game goes to 2 for 25. I mean, that just says you can't be letting guys like Cody Core catch a pass for 50 yards. You can't be letting Tyler Boyd getting 2 vertical passes for 50 yards, or LaFell getting 3 for 79. You can't allow guys of this caliber to do this, because talent-wise, the Eagles did match up with the Bengals yesterday.
KC Joyner here. Yeah, you're right. That's a team that had 3 wins. I mean, to get beat down 29-0 before you finally get on the board, that's a beatdown. And let me ask you, when you watch that game, and if you're kind of checking back at this and say, does the focus shift to Doug Pederson, whether or not he had that team prepared and ready? Did that look like a team that had a week of practice to get ready for a 3-7-1 team?
No, and the thing I keep coming back to when I'm thinking about it is, okay, do the Eagles, I mentioned that Lombardi quote years ago, and said, okay, he knew what type of team he was looking for. And you look at the personnel structure of the team, you go, okay, does the personnel, are they trying to set up a certain type of team? It's like, yeah, you can look at their personnel structure and say, how are they going about getting players? You can see, okay, they want to manage their salary cap well. They want to get a lot of depth. They don't want to just have a couple of stars and a bunch of scrubs. They want a lot of depth. They did a very smart thing with the quarterback, getting quarterback this year, because the quarterback, by the way, the quarterbacks in the 2017 NFL draft, they're abysmal. It's a horrible class. So to get ahead of the curve on that was smart. So it's a lot of forward thinking there. You can see the structure on the personnel side of things, and you start looking at how they're coaching. Because I can come back to, when if Belichick coached this team, it's like, okay, well, he's got a power running back, he's got a couple speed running backs, he's got a really good slot receiver, good tight ends. Offensive line, yeah, it's got some injuries, but they got some talent up there. They're run blocking well. You've got a quarterback who, you get some jitters in the first quarter, but he plays a lot better afterwards. You can blitz really well. You've got good special teams. You start checking off a lot of quality boxes, what this team can do, and you start looking at what they're doing when you put the game plan together and go, wow, they're not highlighting a lot of these things that they should be highlighting, and it just says maybe the coaching's the problem.
Cincinnati, they really forced the Eagles to abandon the run. I mean, you throw 60 passes in a game. I mean, that really shows. But what is the Eagles' run game right now with no Matthews? They don't seem to really trust Wendell Smallwood enough to really feature him a lot. Do you think that is evident in the game plan, that they don't trust their run game?
Yeah, again, thinking if Belichick was trying to call this game plan, he'd say, okay, I'm going to play call a lot of passes. I'm going to basically switch my running game to my passing game. I'm going to play call a lot of dink and dunk passes, and do a lot of things with bunches and stacks and other different things, screen passes to get a lot of the running game into my passing game. And you try and create a lot of space for Smallwood and create a lot of space for Sproles, and say that's what we're going to do, because those are both really space guys. Sproles is more of a much more even than Smallwood, but Smallwood's a guy you'd rather get in the space and use some short area speed. So you want to get that sort of game, but the Eagles have an offense that can do some power running of the football. So not having Matthews out there is a bad thing. This is one place where you ask the question. Matthews is only getting, I think it's 7.5 yards per attempt when he gets good blocking, which is just an average, just a league average number, or even actually a little below league average. So you wonder, okay, you've got Smallwood, you got Sproles, you got speedbacks. Why didn't the Eagles have one more power back? Why don't they have one other guy that they can go to who could be a power back, who can go out there and get just 7.5 yards of carry when you give him good blocking? Because I think if they had that, it would make a lot of difference when Matthews isn't out there.
Fletcher Cox, huge deal this offseason. Many people thought, wow, Jim Schwartz had Darius and Sue and all these guys that played that position and really had big years. And the thought was, man, you were going to give this guy the money ahead of time because you didn't want to have to pay him for what he was going to do in this defense. He has not had a sack in 7 games. He's seen a lot of double teams. So is this Fletcher Cox not having a good year that because, he's not giving it his all or whatever? Or is this, hey, the way that these teams are blocking him, the stats and his numbers are not going to show it? Because there's a lot of frustration. Obviously, when you get that contract, the expectations are there.
All the great defensive tackles. If you look at the defensive linemen, you go, okay, you can count the numbers. Say we've got 4 defensive linemen going up against 5 offensive linemen and a tight end, or sometimes you get about 3-man front, and you're going up against 5. Everybody's going to get double teamed at some point. There's going to be, you can't. If you start breaking down games, you're going to find that no matter who the defensive lineman is, they're going to see a double team. And again, if you're the defense or you're the offense, you're going, well, all right, we're looking at the Eagles front wall. Who are we going to try to double team as often as possible, no matter what the situation is? Cox is going to get that, but every defensive lineman gets that. Bob Lilly got it back in the day. Joe Green got it back in the day. Any great Sue gets it all the time. I mean, anybody you're talking, any defensive lineman is going to get that. So if Cox is only getting, what did he have? He had 2 assisted tackles yesterday, 1 pass defense. He had no quarterback hits, no sacks. He's not getting pressures. I mean, he's just not getting the job done because, it's double teams, but so what? Every great defensive tackle gets double teams. He needs to beat them.
KC Joyner here, by the way. Eagles ranked 30th in the NFL this season in yards per reception and drop percentage. And since week 6, their first game without Lane Johnson, they've allowed 10 sacks to left edge rushers. That's the most, second most in the NFL. You could see a lot of correlation to this offense struggling without Lane Johnson. And, a lot of times you say, look, a lot of teams lose offensive talent or linemen in this league. I mean, Seattle's line stinks. It hasn't ruined their season. There's a lot of bad lines in this league that have had success. So just losing Lane Johnson, is that where you point to the Eagles as the reason why they struggled so much?
Yeah, hey, like you said, next man up. You got to find a way to still get the job done. If you start looking at, they're giving up all those sacks. Do you have to give up all those sacks? I mean, you don't have to, and it's just not. It's not an automatic. You should be able to get replacement level talent. Shouldn't be giving up that many sacks to on left and pass rush pressures. The replacement level talent should not give that up, and I still think a lot of it ends up being coaching. Ends up being that like you talk about the receivers. The Eagles have terrible receivers. Yeah, they're not really good receivers. 30th? I would think that a more creative play caller could get these guys open. And plus, all that, early in the season, they were play calling the guys open. They don't seem to be doing it as well today, and it just says, maybe the fatigue of the team also extends to the head coach.
You think he's in over his head?
Yes. Barring a major change in the next 4 weeks, I would think, he's in over his head. And the thing is if you think a coach is in over his head, and again, you want to get in the last 4 weeks to make, you got one more quarter of the season, let's see if you could do it. But if you do think he's in over his head, you got to make the change. You can't just hope it gets better. If you think he's in over his head, and if you think he can't get it done, cut your losses.
Not too many guys get 1 year, right? I mean, but is this a case where you think 1 year might be that you've seen enough?
If you see 4 more games of this caliber of what we've been seeing of late, and again, the Bengals, you shouldn't be losing to the Bengals. And you don't want to throw the word quit, but you guys are talking about coming into the segment that did that happen? I don't know, and you don't want to just say in one game because a team can sometimes just not show up. Hey, Carolina didn't show up last night, and I don't think they quit on their coach. So just one game isn't enough. But that's where you say you got 4 more weeks. And if you're Pederson, if I'm the Eagles, I want Pederson to think you have to show me something more over the next 4 weeks because as great a job as you did early in the season, if you end the season, if you keep following downhill like this, we can't have that as what we're going into 2017 with.
Okay, a couple quick hits on some of the other key games from KC Joyner here, real fast. Kansas City at Atlanta. Kansas City wins again. Atlanta I don't know that there's a worse way to lose a game.
Yeah, I just wrote about Matt Ryan today talking about how how his production has fallen off from earlier in the year because his vertical passing isn't anywhere near as good. So Atlanta needs to get their vertical passing done, but also why is he throwing that pass? Why are you putting him in that position to throw that pass, and why is he throwing that pass? Doesn't he know better?
You buying Detroit?
Yes. Actually getting more into buying Detroit when you start looking at things they're doing. Yeah, I think they could win one playoff game. I don't think a Super Bowl team, but I think they could actually get a playoff win for only the second time since 1957.
That's unbelievable. Are you buying Green Bay?
No, I still think they've got too many issues on defense. They're too banged up and too talent thin on defense. I think they might make a run to make the playoffs, but I think they're one and done.
Buying Baltimore?
Absolutely buying Baltimore, but They got to play Pittsburgh. They got New England next week, and they've got Pittsburgh too. And I think they could lose both those games, even though they're very good. I wouldn't be surprised to see them out of the playoffs.
Buying Pittsburgh.
Yes. Their defense looked fantastic yesterday, and they tend to play to the level of their competition. And as long as they don't stumble against Cleveland in Week 17, I think they're still going to win that division.
Buying Arizona.
No, too many. They've got some injuries in defense now, and Palmer is just not what he used to be. I don't think that team is going to be able to stay consistent enough. Again, maybe make the playoffs, but 1-out.
Buying Tampa.
Yes, they ranked 7th in the league in pass rush pressure since Week 9. You add that to the production, to what they're getting out of their passing game, and thinks this is a team that's except, you know what, field goal kicking. I wouldn't be surprised to see that cost them some games.
Okay, the teams that lost. Are you selling Atlanta?
Yeah, because unless they can get that vertical production back going again, because Ryan's vertical production has collapsed since that early great start, so he's going to get that going. They don't get that going. Plus they're getting too many shootouts. The defense is too weak.
Yeah, they got Tampa breathing down the neck. How about, even though they won, are you selling Denver?
Probably because the defense, their formula last year was this elite defense that would just dominate people. They've got a really good defense this year, but it's not what it was last year, and it's not going to be enough to offset their offensive weaknesses.
Houston.
Brock Osweiler I just wrote a piece for ESPN's Insider section about fantasy football, about Osweiler and whether or not DeAndre Hopkins has a long-term future. Osweiler is one of the worst vertical quarterbacks. In fact, he's the worst vertical quarterback over the last 2 years. And if you look at his history, it suggests, even in college, it suggests that this is not something that's going to get corrected. As long as Osweiler's there, can't buy Houston.
Miami.
Buying to an extent, but they've got some really tough run defenses coming up, and they're getting Ajayi involved in the passing game a little bit more, but I don't think that if their running game can't get going, I don't think their passing game can carry this team, so kind of worried about them.
Two more. Washington.
Still buying because Cousins is hitting vertical passes to all of his players, and if you've got a vertical passing game in this league and you've got a solid defense like they do, you can win a lot of games. So, yeah, still buying even after a stumble.
All right, everyone was concerned. They were 8-3. New York, the first game that people thought they would lose, they lost to Pittsburgh. Another tough one coming up against the Cowboys. New York, buying, selling.
Selling. The offense looked very bad yesterday. The defense looked better, but their defense is good, but I don't think it's good enough to win the big games. Lost to Pittsburgh. I think they'll lose to Dallas.
All right. We saw a WWE pay-per-view last night. Before we get to your article, if San Francisco and Cleveland were in a steel cage match, who would get out? And San Francisco, by the way, lost 26-6 to the Bears yesterday, who had Matt Barkley playing quarterback.
Yeah, I still think that San Francisco they would get some help from Ellsworth and get out.
By the way, how about a kick in the groin for Chip Kelly? He drafts Matt Barkley, and then he gets beat by Matt Barkley at 26-6 yesterday. So you like San Francisco slightly better with the help of a jobber. All right. The Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Of course, KC Joyner covers the NFL. He also is one of the writers for WWE at ESPN. And, the article that he has there that you should go check out, detailing why using flawed logic justifies actions. To justify actions is a must for any heel character.
Yeah, it's a whole section of articles. It's called the Getting Over series, and it details the psychology that professional wrestlers have used to work crowds. And it's a series of rules. And this week's rule it's that heels should use flawed logic to get over with the crowd. So if they turn on the babyface, they need to find some kind of a flawed reason to justify it, because that just makes the crowd even madder because you won't stand up for your actions. Kind
of like I told you, maybe Doug Pederson should read that.
He needs to, he's using some flawed logic, it seems, and putting together his game plan. Yeah, there's certainly a correlation there.
Check that out, WWE at ESPN. KC Joyner will be back on Thursday as the Eagles get ready to try to get back on a win streak at home against the Washington Redskins. And the Redskins lost that game. They are currently out of the playoff mix. So maybe if the Eagles can win that one, we'll get some positive momentum to close it out, but not looking good. Casey, enjoy the what are you watching tonight? Monday Night Football or Monday Night Raw?
Probably watching both. My son is a big New Day fan, so we usually let him stay up to watch the New Day and get in. He got his birthday last week, and he got some Booty Go cereal. He enjoyed it.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Take care, pal.
You too, man.